Back here, first things first, joined by former Pro Bowler Bart Scott.
Man, we got a new sponsor in Ram Truck. We got new people watching us, Bart. I need you on your best behavior today.
Oh, I'm all about that money. You know I'm going to be right whenever you tell me about the sponsor.
Okay, all right.
Can I get in on this?
Yeah, man.
I'm from Detroit. My family.
We're
my
not even in on it.
Baby.
Absolutely.
I give you the triple. I give you
best behavior.
I give you the A plan, baby. Give you a discount on the rides if you need one.
Oh, okay. Appreciate that.
Well,
Motor Train Truck of the Year, Dodge Ram.
Here we go. We are officially a quarter of the way through the season, Bart, and Russell Wilson has quietly led his Seahawks to 3 wins. So far this year, only Patty Mahomes has a higher passer rating. When asked about his quarterback, Pete Carroll couldn't say enough.
I think he's off to his best start ever. I don't know what it looks like numbers-wise, but I think it is. He's, I don't think he's ever been more accurate than he's been and more consistent and in command of everything, So I think he's off to a great start. I mean, I don't care how big the numbers are. I'm not talking about how many yards or whatever. His play has just been really, really sharp.
You agree with Pete Carroll, Bart? Is Russell Wilson the best quarterback basically in the NFC?
I think you can make an argument for that. I think Drew Brees will want to have something to say about that, and the blessing in disguise is that he got hurt so he won't have that tired arm later in the season. But Russell Wilson, I think, is responsible for more of the productivity of his team than any other team. They have a particular style, and I like to think of the Seattle Seahawks kind of like the Patriots of the West, because no matter what they have, they're always going to be in it. They're just a great run organization. But when you take that much of the pie like Russell Wilson is taking, you have to be an elevator. And I think he's an elevator. He's not a stabilizer. He's not a guy that comes in and just holds on to the steering wheel and try not to mess it up. He's a guy that's realized who he is, and he understands when to take over in a game. He waits till the perfect opportunities, the situations to be able to use his athleticism. He doesn't put himself in harm's way. He makes sure that he doesn't take hits, even though he's an athletic quarterback. But the problem is that they're going to run into when they play against the elite teams in the NFC. He doesn't have enough weapons on the outside. They're throwing stuff against the wall. They took a flyer on Metcalf, but he's not. Nobody on his offense is going to strike fear in the opposing defenses. Minds. You said this happened when they played Dallas last year, when they played a mirror image of themselves. He didn't have enough to be able to be elite, and he had to be special. You can't ask a quarterback to be special every play.
Well, so this is the reason that I was so high on Seattle going into the year. This is the reason that I think Russell Wilson's the most underrated player year in, year out in football. A down year for the Seahawks with Russell Wilson is 9 wins. That's the worst year they've had. Every other year they've made the playoffs, and every year he is the forgotten amongst the 5 best quarterbacks in football, which he is year in, year out. Is he the best quarterback in the NFC? Absolutely yes. Ooh. I'd like to say absolutely yes. I'd like to say Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers has to be better. And over the last 3 years, Russell Wilson has unequivocally been better. Drew Brees right now is injured, and you could make the argument that Russell Wilson, certainly the last half of last year and over the last couple years, has been neck and neck with Drew Brees. And the injury thing matters when you're comparing yourself to a guy who has never missed a single game due to injury. Dak Prescott, I know Dak's playing really well this year. If Russell Wilson were the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, they would be far and away the best team in the NFL. And so we talk about these other quarterbacks. We talked about Brady earlier, questionable offensive line, questionable weapons. Russell Wilson hadn't had a great offensive line in years. He lost Doug Baldwin from a receiving corps that already had a lack of weapons. And he makes it work with Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and Disley, the tight end. I don't think he gets a coaching schematic advantage. They just run the ball, even if it's not effective with Chris Carson. And Russell Wilson is the reason that this is a great team, or at least a very good team, year in, year out. So right now, with Brees on the shelf, with Rodgers, again, not popping statistically thus far for the 3rd straight year, to me, absolutely, Russell Wilson's the best quarterback in his conference.
Yeah, I got to disagree with you on that. And even with Drew Brees, man, he's got an injured thumb, but he's done too much for too long, overcome too many obstacles to not say he's the class. And after that, I'm going with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers in a new offense, all right? He's not fully comfortable with everything they're doing, but if we're having a fantasy draft, a for-real draft, or whatever, I'm taking both of those guys over. And I don't care if you tell me, well, how long can they play? I don't care. Drew Brees can play a couple more years. Aaron Rodgers can play a whole handful of years. They are better at throwing the football than Russell. Russell's a great quarterback, a great leader. He finally has the team because now, no Earl Thomas, no Richard Sherman, no Marshawn Lynch. He finally won that team over because it was a struggle for Russ. It was he was not the leader of that football team. And there was some bumping of some heads in that locker room. And ultimately, Russell, because he's the quarterback and because he's going to play for a long time, and he is special at doing this. But I'm not going to all of a sudden, because Drew Brees has a dinged up thumb, I'm going to put him on the shelf. No, and because Aaron Rodgers has a new young head coach, no. Both of those quarterbacks are still better than Russell Wilson. And Russell is a special, special player. He's a special leader. And you can see that with the consistency of them with that organization there in Seattle.
Well, when you think about the Seattle Seahawks, they have a style. They have a brand. And it's about, ball control, limiting the possessions in the game, playing good defense, stout defense in the back. Now, they're taking some flyers on some guys, like Ziggy Ansah. They made the trade for Clowney because they realized that they must, be able to stay in ball games. But they also been in one of the weaker divisions for the previous years. You think about the Cardinals, you think about San Francisco last year, True. And they've been able to benefit from that and just kind of being able to win their division and be in striking distance all the time. But now Russell Wilson's going to have to do more, and the organization's going to have to hit on some, they're going to have to find some hidden gems. We saw Michael Thomas become a hit. We say Alvin Kamara become a hit. They have to find, because when you take that much of the pie, then your organization has to be 85% as far as decision-making on who they're going to bring in, and you have to be big on development. What I love about Pete Carroll and what he is, he's still a teacher. I think nowadays we have a lot of young coaches that come in and have their system, and they expect you to already be a ready-made product. Pete Carroll is a developer of talent, and that's why they've been able to hold the fort. When you lose a Earl Thomas, when you lose a Cam Chancellor, when you lose a Richard Sherman, but going forward, I don't know if they have enough to be able to get past like the divisional round or the AFC Championship, because they have to ugly it up. They have to muddy it up. If they get in a shooting contest, a shootout, they can't win that because he don't have the weapons to get the productivity that they need.
Well, we talk about that he doesn't have the weapons. Over the last 3 years, no quarterback in football has more touchdown passes. He led the whole league in touchdowns 2 years ago, I believe it was. And this year, with the worst receiving core that he's had since he's been there, through 4 weeks, he has career high in touchdowns, a career high in yards, a career high in rating, career high in completion percentage, and he hasn't thrown a pick. I mean, he just keeps. Now, if you look at Pete Carroll's,
for 200 yards, Nick.
What?
For 223
Well, he's got
yards.
1,200 on the season, so he must have had some big games. If through 4 games, he's averaging 300 per game, and he had a 200-yard game in there. He had 400 in the loss to New Orleans. He had 300 against Pittsburgh, and against Arizona, the game you're talking about, he had 240. I mean, we can parse it if we want. Against Arizona, they didn't need him to throw the ball a bunch. They were dominating that game throughout. But Pete Carroll, year after year, says Russell Wilson's off to his best start, if you look back at the quotes. But year after year, it's true. Like, each year, he raises the bar on his own level of performance, even if you pare away some of his talent. And so, listen, I think right now, I love Aaron Rodgers. My pick for MVP. Green Bay was my pick for the Super Bowl. But Russell Wilson, over the last, not 4 weeks, over the last 3 years, has been better than him.
But he lost 2 weeks ago to Teddy Bridgewater as a backup.
Yes.
At home.
Absolutely. And
so let alone is Drew Brees a better quarterback. Like, I don't believe New Orleans is going to go to Green Bay and beat Aaron Rodgers with Teddy Bridgewater. So for me, in the head-to-head, like, that's a huge indictment on Russell and on that offense.
You got to throw Carson Wentz in there a little bit too. Carson Wentz, I think, is a good quarterback when he gets his weapons back. He's the next. To me, he's a close thing to Andrew Luck.
Yeah, I don't think he's in the league of Russ. Russ is a special guy.
Bart, stick around. Take a break. Coming up, can the Rams win the NFC again without a healthy Todd Gurley? That's next on First Things First.
Dodge Rams.